time that I got into the barbering industry, I was just transitioning over from a regular retail job that was paying minimum wage, about $10 an hour. I worked there full time, and by the end of a month, it was probably roughly around $2,000 after taxes. When I first got into a barbershop, I went to an established shop that was in this neighborhood for about 11 years. So when I walked in, it was already completely fully booked. People were coming in, but when the shop opened to when it was closed. So they constantly always had people. The price points of this place was $6 to $7. And I'm gonna also take you through the tipping averages of each of these price brackets. I feel pretty lucky to be able to have gone through different phases of different types of shops to get a glimpse of how each of these business structures work. And the goal of this video is to kind of share with you guys that there is more than one way to work, and that there is definitely a shop that's created best for each person, and the goal is to find a place that I personally think that allows you to grow in that type of space that you're going to be spending so much time in. It's such a better feel going through it daily versus hating the place that you work at. So we're going to start with the first place that I worked at, and this was the established barbershop that had been there for 11 years. $6 to $7 per cut, and at the time the average tip was probably $1 to $2. Now here, it's fast paced. I'm not connecting to any types of clients. They're just trying to go to whoever's available. So there wasn't a lot of relationship building in this place. It was just new people every time. And I was only there for about 2 weeks before I moved into a different shop. And then actually prior to that, I forgot to mention, I worked at a chain out of school, and this was my first place of working. And the business structure here was that it was an hourly paying job. So you would get probably, at the time, minimum wage, I want to say was $10. You would get $10 plus tips, and you work by how many hours. I was there for about 2 months, realized it was not the type of place I wanted to be in because it was so fast paced. Everything was based around 15-minute haircuts. So I ended up leaving there and then I got into that established little neighborhood shop that I had just talked about. Moving on from there, I went to an actual barbershop where I was able to grow in about 4 years. And the price points there was a little different because we were building the shop from scratch. So different from the neighborhood shop that was already established, this one we had to be the ones to establish that shop. So it was me and 4 other guys at the time. By the end of my 4 years, we had about 12 people before I left there and went to LA. But while I was here, I learned a couple different things. We started off at $12. At $12, on average, you're getting about a $3 tip, which is a little bit less than 20%. 20% is recommended, so you would get about $2 to $3 on top of the actual cut. In this shop, I was in a commission place, and the best thing about commission shops is that you don't have to worry about paying a weekly rent, especially not having a set clientele yet. So this was really helpful for me at the time, not having an established clientele list yet. So from $12, we eventually moved into $17, and just a little over 20%, they gave us $3 tip to make an even 20. That was on average. And from there, we moved into $20, window price $20. Now we're averaging about $5 because I think it's easier for people to give a $5 bill versus finding 3 singles. So now you're looking at a tip of 25%. Now from there, I remember running into a friend of mine, and she was charging double of what I was charging. And this is another avenue to also think about, is to do your research as far as what people are charging in your area and how to scale your pricing to that. That has really helped me tremendously on how to price myself properly, about, you know, on top of your demand, on top of the execution, on top of the people trying to come back. That is something that's really important because I need to scale to my competitors, and I need to see what people are delivering, what people are getting, and I want to understand that market so I can best serve that community. I ran into my friend, and she was charging double, and at this time I was wondering, how does she charge double when she doesn't specialize in men's haircuts? And that was something I was doing. The shop is family friendly. The customer service was good. There was actually no difference in the two business structures, other than one was called a salon and one was called a barbershop. Everything else in between was the same. So I started to learn how to package my haircuts better. So I was able to jump from $20 going into $40. And that included also an appointment. I went from a super heavy walk-in clientele to being able to charge more and have people lock in their price, because I think at this point people would rather pay the extra money to have a secure slot versus having to wait a couple hours not knowing how the line looks that day when they come in. Easily they were willing to pay more. So I was able to do $40 at that space. Now the tips are on average $10. So now that again stays about like 25%. And what I've noticed so far in just the numbers that I've been telling you is that as I started to charge more, the tips also started to grow more. So here's another thing to think about. Now there is different things that you can do, and this again depends on where you work and what your boss allows you to do. My boss allowed us freedom to grow however we needed, as long as you paid at least the sticker price. He didn't care how much we charged, and that is going to be different for every single shop out there. For me personally, any shop I've worked at, I am not afraid to ask those kind of questions. So if you at least are aware that those things are possible, maybe that is something that you guys can ask your bosses as well, as a way to grow within the space that you're at. All right, so I'm going to take you through another thing real quick. So this is something that I remember doing when I was heavily working the walk-in price. That was $20, right? I was doing 15 on average, 6 days a week. Now that's about $300 a day. By the time I take off the commission and timesing that by 6 days a week, you're looking at close to $1,100 at the end of that week, on top, and then with $3 to $5 tips on top of that number. At this moment, I realized social media was starting to come out. Social media was starting to grow. We had to now start learning how to market ourselves. I ended up saying, how do I have time to shoot content, to put things together if I'm working 6 days a week with only 1 day break? The whole packaging of my haircut started to take place, and I was like, okay, maybe I don't need to do 15 people a day, 6 days a week. Now I've scaled my prices up. I did the appointments, I did the refreshments, I did the extra services to create a better experience for each person. Was able to push that to $40. So now I only have to take 10, right? 10 clients at $40. Now going from 6 days a week to 4 days a week, giving me 2 days back to back to run errands, to catch up on the week, and also to create content and use that as a way to build my social media. On top of that, in a week's work that counts up to about 1,100. No, that counts to about a little over 1,000 and not including yet the $5 to $10 tips on top of those $40 cuts. So you're making about the same, if not a little more, and working less days, which now gave me 2 days to create content, to market myself in a different way. Switch that, I moved to LA. We challenge ourselves. I got stuck. I felt like I was in a rut, so I was like, you know what, I need to go work in LA and challenge myself a little more. And over there, the price points were a little higher. There was a melting pot of more people in LA. I think it's an overall saturated field of so many different cultures, so many different backgrounds. So I was like, you know what, let me try and challenge myself, go out to LA and let's do this. Over there, easily, I found a shop that was charging $50. I'm like, okay, cool. That's $10 more than where I left off in Orange County. I actually struggled because moving to a new city, even though it's a nearby city, I had to start over from scratch. So I lost all my clients from OC and I had to rebuild. But that was okay because it was the most humbling experience for me, because I had to learn how to rebuild myself in different ways, learn how to market new different ways, not actually using social media to build new clientele, because at the time I had about 40,000, 50,000, and it didn't matter. I had to rebuild my reputation in a new part of the city and had to pretty much start over from scratch. But now you're not starting over completely, you're starting over from at least an experience level of the last 4 years, 5 years that you've been doing this. So it taught me how to rebuild. I ended up going to an upscale barbershop now, right, that charged $50. I would average on a good day probably about 10. That leaves about $500 a day, right? From there, at $50, people were tipping still about the same as the $40 mark, $5 to $10 on average. I move into a men's salon. The only difference is that it's called a salon and not a barbershop. I got to experience this world. I got to see what these clients are looking for. How do I find these type of clients? Because now I don't have to do 10 haircuts. Now I'm cutting down to 8 and being able to charge $85 to $100. Tips started off at 15 to 20. By the end of each day, you can make up to $800 to $1,000 just scaling it up and finding the right clientele. And that is the thing that people may not understand. Obviously, different price brackets, and there's a clientele for each of those. So you gotta pick and choose and figure out which one you wanna align with. Some people want to just cut hair all day, so it's easier that you just stay in a busy shop like the last couple shops that I was at, where it was ongoing and it's fast paced and people love that, and that's life. And then for other people, like for me, for example, I needed time to create content. I needed time to build in different ways, and the only way to do that is if I was able to condense my schedule, and the only way that works is if I was able to charge more for each slot. And that is what I geared myself towards, to be able to do both of those. You can't be busy, so overly busy, that you will also have time to put content together. You still have a life outside of work. You got families, you got kids, you got relationships, so you have to think about how to utilize your time the best. So now we move into the men's salon, right? We left the men's salon. I started to take an education role, and that completely changed my work situation. I had to move into a private studio because my schedule is so all over the place. I couldn't actually work for somebody anymore, so I actually was forced into a private studio, which actually worked better for me to do that. And I've been doing that now for the last 2 years, and it's been really nice because most of my clients now are 3 to 4 weeks. So and they're in the middle of the week, and I usually travel on the weekend. So now that has shifted my entire schedule, and I've been taking more of an educational role. So I probably do education, I'd say closer to like 65-70% of my schedule, than to cut hair on the side now. So that has changed the way I work, and also changed the structure of how I take clients, because it's not very consistent anymore, and my clients understand that. So it's been really great to find those people that work well also with my schedule. When I first started cutting hair, I would probably have to say, when I remember doing my taxes for the first time and for the barbershop, is that it was about 12 to 15,000 for the year, I think. And that was starting in a fresh, brand new shop. I mean, you're looking at working 8-hour shifts sometimes and walking away with $30 because of the slow build. But this is why it's important to align yourself with something you actually enjoy and love to do, because when you hit those lows and things aren't going good that month, the love that you have for the things that you're doing and you're investing into are going to help you push through those moments. Easy to fall out of it and lose motivation for it. That's why you have to actually care about what you do, because that's going to really push you through. So even when I was in those lows, even when I did that transition to LA and I hit that low, because I loved it so much, and the passion that I gained from doing it for so long helped me carry through those moments to continue to push and find new ways to kind of stabilize my life again. I just wanted to say this too, like for a lot of you barbers that are watching this, or people that have no idea what it's like. I know it's cliche to say this, but the amount of money that you can make depends on the person. You can make, I mean, shit. I have to be honest. My starting rate was $15,000. Easily, you can work into 6 figures. 7 even if you have businesses and have an amazing business structure. It's pretty much like anything else out there. Whatever job that you are going to get into, it really does solely depend on you and your strategy, because being good is one thing, but also learning the business side of things is equally as important. This is something I've gone through myself. I started off as a very artist mindset, you know, just grinding it out, working so much, heavily doing the most, and not seeing any way to grow until I met people that were more business minded that helped me see things that I wasn't looking at before. And now expanding into more of a business mindset, I've been able to take my business and grow it properly every single year. So one thing that I truly find that is really critical for a lot of artist-minded people like myself is you got to team up with people who are more business-minded to help you scale your schedule, help you strategize your business so you can get the most out of it. So I hope this was insightful for you guys. This all depends on what you want to do with it. So if you guys have any questions, please let me know in the comments. You know how it goes, and I'll see you guys next time.